Two Corps, actually, I think if you looked at the map in terms of area, Two Corps was the largest area geographically, but I would say probably population-wise, the least populated because, again, being the Central Highlands, you look at the areas of Kon Tum Province, Pleiku Province in the Highlands, not much of a population. The population was more down on the coast, where you would have had Quy Nhon, and further down the 23rd AOR was Nha Trang. Oh, the mountain yards, yes, we're over. That was one of the sought-after souvenirs, was a mountain yard mousetrap, which I sadly didn't bring home, but they were quite intricate little devices made out of sticks. Yeah, they're fun. If you can find one, they're interesting. Working with the Arvins was a pleasant experience. It was their war. They'd been at it for 20 or 30 years, which is probably why the idea that an American can come in and in the space of 1 year tell them how to run their war was perhaps behind part of the decision to go from being, quote, an advisory team to a CAT, a combat assistance team. We're there to help them fight their war. This was before the official policy later on, a few years later, became where it's the Arvins War, and they do everything. But working with them was a pleasant experience. Our common language was, for the most part, English. Though we had been taught Vietnamese, we certainly were not conversant. I did find it interesting because I did a lot of work going out with Colonel Lemmer, who spoke French, and in fact working with not so much the Arvins themselves, but when we would have to go out and speak and meet with the villages and the villagers where the Arvins were, is you would find the head of the village, and Fred, of course, would be speaking French with them. That was more the common language because the elders in the village, of course, under French occupation, would have been schooled in no French. The VC and units were throughout, as I say, in our part down along the plains where the 3 regiments of the 22nd were deployed, the 40th up at Bong Son at LZ English, the 41st at LZ Crystal further south, north of just where we were at Baji, and the 47th at Tay Ninh. They, of course, did their thing, and this is where the battalion advisors and the regimental advisors were active. Later in my tour, I did a tour. I was there with the 41st Regiment and with a battalion for a while, but we were pretty much static in place and occupied. There were obviously the occasional VC attacks and things, but as I said earlier, the focus and the emphasis, it seemed to be a quiet time, and the emphasis was on pacification. I do know that the headquarters itself at Baji, we were in the middle of the Vietnamese compound, and we were fairly high on a hill where an ancient Cham temple was located. And at night, we would go out. This was at division headquarters, but we could see out over the valley for miles, and you would see the occasional firefight going on. All you would see would be the lights, really, of the helicopters working out with a minigun or something like that. No sound as you sat there and had your beer and your popcorn and watched Jane Fonda and Barbarella up on the screen and just sort of said, you know, today's your turn, tomorrow might be ours, but that's sort of an existential view of war.